Okay, I'm sorry that the part one video actually cut off in the middle of a sentence, but it turns out that I had actually reached the maximum file size that my phone supports for a video, a single video file. So anyway, what I had meant to say was that um, you have fewer gearing options for this compared to that Madcap with the lethal weapon gearbox and the power clutch, because here you just have to use the Tamiya style gear. So you can use the stock spur gear, or you can get the speed tuned gear set. I think it's called the speed tuned gear set or the high speed gear set. Either way, you get 3 spur gear options. You only really need the stock spur gear. That's what I've used on my Dirt Thrasher. You know, there's several times I've raced it at Vonats. Just put the largest pinion you can with the stock spur gear. So it's like, I think, a 21 tooth pinion, and that's more than enough. You don't need to go to gear it any higher or technically lower than that, just lower gear ratio. Should be enough. So for this car, that's where I'm going to start. And because I have less drag with the same exact gear ratio, I should be faster coming out of corners. So I don't think I'll need to go any more aggressive in gearing than that. So that's kind of it for the build. Um, I was So my goal here is, once again, just to try to come up with a way to demonstrate that a two-wheel drive buggy can be competitive against a four-wheel drive buggy in the classic class. And I've really struggled with this for a couple of years. I started with the Traxxas Rad 2, figuring like that would be interesting because it's a very tunable buggy. But at the end of the day, the steering on that is really bad, and um, it holds back the entire rest of the chassis that could otherwise be halfway decent. So I tried that for a little bit, didn't quite work. I tried this. I didn't get to race it, but I just tried it in practice, and it was good. But it didn't quite have the punch that I was looking for. So I'm hoping this will do the trick. We'll see. So I do plan to bring both of these Madcaps, because I made changes to that one, and this is brand new. So we'll see. We'll see how they go. Um, let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to mention here? Yeah. So the other thing is, I don't even know if the classic class this year is going to be a single class, or if it's going to be split. Again, right now, as of this recording, it's April 2025. I had been in some conversation with Eric about what he wants to do with this class. At the moment, he's kind of thinking about whether he should split it out into a two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive separate classes, or maybe do something else. So we'll see. If it's a combined class, I'm kind of hoping for that, so that I can race this against the four-wheel drive buggies and see how it does. If they split the classes, okay, fine. I can still do this, and I can compare my qualifying times and my race times to the four-wheel drive class and see how it compares that way. And that will also allow me to run a four-wheel drive buggy in classic as well. I do two and four wheel. And so, like, right now, I'm sort of, I've tore apart the VQS because I took the shocks off of that and put it onto this. So maybe I'll run the VQS. I need to make some changes to that anyway, or maybe the DF01 yet again. So we'll see. But this is a really fascinating class. I really like it because Eric gives people license to be creative with how they do builds, right? He's not terribly strict about, oh, well, if you're going to run like a Tamiya Fox, it has to be a stock Fox. No, you can really mess around and try to, like, hack it to make it more race worthy, or at least as race worthy as you can make a plastic tub chassis. That makes it kind of cool. So I'm pretty excited about this. Yeah, I don't know what else I have to say about this. I mean, there's some tunability. It's not the most tunable chassis. Oh, maybe that's another thing. I'm using the high cap dampers, honestly, mostly for aesthetics, because the color scheme matches the rest of the build. These shocks are good, provided that the springs that come with them are the appropriate springs for the track you have. The problem is, if you want to use other types of springs, it's a weird diameter. Uh, Big bore springs are a little bigger, I think, than what the spring cup can fit, and standard bore springs are too small. So if you want to use big bore springs, you need to use a big bore spring cup, and those don't mate very nicely with the Tamiya shock end. So if you, so then you have to mount a totally different shock end, like an associated shock end, and use associated spring cups, and it gets kind of weird. So just for aesthetics, I'm using these shocks with the stock springs. I also have these, the buggy aeration filled damper set. I actually have a few sets of these. I use these on right now my Dynastorm, and these are really beautiful shocks. They're really nice. And so I was thinking of using these because they have threaded shock bodies, so you can get much finer tuning of the ride height and everything. Um, but I figured those are a bit more modern, and I want this to have more of a vintage feel. So I'm going to stick with the high cap dampers, and I'm just going to try to make them work. Hopefully they'll work well. We'll see. So, yeah, I guess that's it for now. Thanks for watching.